All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to jump in and then we'll get started. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Good afternoon. I know we still have a few rolling in, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Julia. I am the marketing and channel specialist here at PRIT, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. We have a really exciting panel lined up for you today to discuss Cato's Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE platform, and how that helps our credit union partners. Joining us today, we have Evan, a channel sales engineer at Cato Networks, Chris, a project engineer here at PRIT, and we also have Doug, CEO at Community Powered Federal Credit Union. And thanks again for joining us, guys. Throughout the webinar today, please feel free to drop any questions you have in the Q&A. We do want to make this as interactive as possible, and I'll go ahead and ask those questions throughout our discussion. At PRIT, we are always striving for the best solutions, partners, and especially when that comes to security. And this is where Cato has come into play for us. Their SASE platform has been crucial for many of our credit union partners, including Community Powered. So let's go ahead and get started. Evan, I'm going to throw it over to you first. For those who might be new to the concept, can you just give us an overview of SASE and why it's particularly relevant for credit unions?
Yeah, absolutely. So SASE came about in 2019 is when Gartner defined the term. But let's break it down this way, right? Instead of just talking about SASE, because everyone says SASE and it doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's just kind of some letters. And I think Doug will talk about this more in a bit, but SASE is really about taking networking and security and reducing it down to the outcome, right? What are we looking to achieve rather than all the parts and pieces and trying to make that happen, right? Trying to take a bunch of separate things, make them work together and accomplish exactly what you want. So we're taking networking and security and converging them into a single cloud service. So this means that consumers of Cato SASE can connect all their locations and users, and they can instantly get consistent security policy and access anywhere in the world with very little effort and investment as far as time and the deployment goes. It's definitely brought security and networking more accessibly to credit unions. And on why this is relevant to credit unions, right? And I think that all of you on here probably know better than I do, right? But you have a lot of regulations and compliance things that you have to adhere to. Most importantly, you're in a very important part of your members' lives, right? And I know that most of you are running with smaller IT teams, and everyone has limited budgets. And SASE is really a great way to take the work of security and kind of offload it, right? So we have security experts. We're running 2 SOCs 24/7. We're consistently updating the security services across the cloud every hour. And this means that you can benefit from always up-to-date security without having to have a complete team of people managing it, right? You become responsible for your policies, for ensuring that things work how you want them to, and we keep things running, right? So before, and this is kind of an overused analogy, it's like changing the oil while you're driving the car. Now it's like the car is driving itself, and you're just changing the air conditioning settings and the radio station.
I love that, Evan. Thank you so much for that overview. And I think a crucial point that you made was that SASE gives all organizations, regardless of their budget, the size of their IT team, gives them all these same security capabilities. So, Doug, with that, I'm going to throw it over to you. Can you kind of share the experience that Community Powered had implementing SASE, and what improvements have you seen in your security posture and then really in your overall operations?
Sure. Yeah. So before Cato, we had several different pieces of equipment. We had our Sonic Wall firewall. We had a VeloCloud for SD-WAN, log collector, security equipment. And we also had, each site had their own public IP addresses. And so that was just a lot to manage. what Cato did was really simplify all that. They brought that into a single appliance with one login, one portal to go in and manage. And that also allowed us to have another layer of security in our network. Cato allows for you to have all those things just into that one appliance. And so we added that into our security posture with Microsoft 365. We had established conditional access policies, and all of our staff use YubiKeys to sign into Microsoft and their PCs. So that was just adding Cato was just an easy layer because it had its own assigned public IP addresses that we could use. So that allowed the conditional access policies to be created much easier. And then to just add that layer of security with our YubiKeys, so there's no password. You just log in. It's a single sign-on into your computer, into Cato, no password. It's not just good for the end user, makes it easy, but also IT doesn't have to reset passwords for people who are locked out or forgot. So that made it a lot nicer. And then with their zero trust network architecture, it also improved our security that we had. They have what you call risk scores, and they have, I think, thousands of sites, maybe tens of thousands of sites that they risk score. And so initially we started out with just blocking sites that were high risk. So we would allow any site that was a low or moderate risk. And just kind of continually over time, we've gradually improved our security posture. So now we only allow sites that we allow, ones that are sanctioned by us. And so it's really a zero trust network architecture. And you can't do that overnight, but it does allow you, the Cato does allow you over time to just constantly improve your security. And so that's been great for us. And then their dashboard has kind of total transparency built into it. So you can see everything, control everything. And for me, that helps me, sleep a little better at night knowing our network's safe.
I think that's a great point, Doug. I love your call out to the single pane of glass that the Cato platform provides. I know that that's a huge piece for that visibility and control for our teams and to collaborate with our credit union partners as well. On that point, Chris, do you have anything that you want to add to that? I know you were critical in implementing SASE, not just for Community Powered, but a lot of our other credit union partners as well.
Yeah. So one of the things I think that is could be a key benefit for their credit unions is just the simplicity that it brings for the WAN and branch connectivity, right? So with multiple sites, removing those SD-WAN pieces and the sonic wall firewalls that Doug had out at each branch and simplifying it into a single socket at each site. That really helped to simplify the environment. With Cato, you can have multiple internet circuits, and they can all be active simultaneously, and you can have up to at least 3 on smaller sockets, 4 on larger ones, and so it really takes it from a non-simplified environment to a really simplified environment, especially for failover and things like that.
Definitely. And I think, Doug, let's talk operationally too. What improvements have you seen kind of from this technology in your day-to-day operations? I mean, I know you said you sleep better at night, and what does that really look like? And Evan, Chris, too, if you guys have anything to add to this, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, and I would even say, really, from a strategic standpoint, it's been a game changer for us because having those static public IP addresses across the entire branch network, it really allows a lot of flexibility. So if you want to add a new branch, or relocate an existing branch, it's all really simple. You just have to have that Cato appliance, and you just connect in whatever existing internet connections are there, and that site comes up with all the security that's already built into the, you've already built into the Cato appliance. So for us, we had to relocate a branch. The landlord wasn't renewing our lease at a site, so we had to move our branch to a new location. So that, at least from an IT perspective, made it very easy. And then just a few months ago, we're actually kind of in the middle of it right now, but we're acquiring a smaller credit union, and it was just really a little bit scary going into the other credit union, seeing the IT infrastructure that they had. But it was really great that we had Cato, because all we had to do was drop in a Cato appliance over there, and that nightmare just went away. We had all the new, upgraded security features. It's like they went from, coach class to first class, just dropping in that Cato appliance. So it was easy, and it made me feel better, knowing that the credit union we were going to acquire, has good IT already. And the other piece that I think is important is the remote users. It's not like a traditional VPN. It's, they call them SDP users, software defined parameters. And it has an always on feature. So that user that is remote is always has the same security as if they were in the office. There's no turning on or off a VPN. They get the same protection they get in the office or out of the office. So that's nice to know. If I'm not there, they're still secure. And then just from a disaster recovery standpoint, also, it's you don't need to have the Cato appliance. If something happens to your physical site or your Cato appliance, you can use the SDP feature, which is just an application that you install on your PC, and you can access all of your things, all of your Microsoft, whatever third-party vendors you have built in. You can access all of those things right through the Cato software. So that's really nice too.
Yeah, sorry, Julia, not to derail us.
No.
You keep mentioning, our IPs and using them is a great feature for you. Can we drill down into a little bit more? Can you tell me, what is your experience like in actually sending traffic to these IPs, allocating them? How much work is this really? I think I kind of know the answer already, but I'd like to hear from you what your experience was.
Well, we partnered with Pure IT in this project, and so Chris Howe is the one who actually was the one who set it up for us. And all he did was, the appliance was mailed to us. We didn't actually have anybody come on site. Chris just walked me through over the phone how to connect the Cato appliance, and it's really simple. The one that we has just has 4 ports on the back of it. 2 WAN ports, 2 LAN ports. We plugged in our 2 WAN connections and then plugged our switch into the LAN port, and we were up and running.
That's awesome. Chris, anything you want to add there? And I'm stealing Julia's job. Sorry about that.
No, please, Evan, take it away.
No problem. Yeah, I want to touch on those remote users a little bit. So those remote users actually tie into those IPs that you're talking about, Evan. So with those conditional access policies that Doug has in place within M365, we only allowed the users remote or in the office to sign into those Microsoft apps through those Cato IPs. So when the user is always on in Cato, their authentication attempt is coming from one of those Cato IPs. And so if you were a user that, was outside of that range, you wouldn't be able to hit any kind of Microsoft app that you're using. So that's one of the other big things that from a security perspective was big for them.
Yeah, and
That's a
Chris, I
great
would
point.
I would just add to not just Microsoft, but we also use it for Fiserv. Fiserv is locked down to just those IP addresses. Our online banking, all of our critical apps are locked down to those few public IP addresses that Cato has. And right, no matter where we log in, we still get those same public IP addresses, so we can access it from anywhere, which is great.
That's great. And I think more for credit unions, especially, we obviously need strong security policies, which we've kind of addressed so far. But I want to jump in to how really this solution is perfect for credit unions in terms of budgeting, right? Credit unions often operate with limited budgets. And how does SASE help in balancing, cost effectiveness and those robust security measures? Chris, I think, you wanted to jump in on this one.
Yes. So kind of like we touched on earlier, Doug had multiple different vendors, which is hardware, licensing, and all that goes with that. And so reducing that cost, that extra cost of having the multiple vendors, licenses, and things like that into a single socket or single Cato device really helps with cost. A lot of times in other credit unions, we've seen expensive MPLS lines that are used to provide the WAN connectivity or branch connectivity, and those can get expensive. And so with Cato, allowing you to have those multiple internet circuits, just a regular, it could be broadband, it could be fiber, whatever is available at the branch location. Having those multiple links with the redundancy that it brings, it can reduce the cost quite a bit. And you also have all the centralized configurations as well right there within Cato, within their management application. So you're not going to, one Sonic wall over here and a VeloCloud over here or whatever. And maybe you have multiple people that need to, take care of those different devices. So, it could help on that as well and help them focus their areas on other things that will help the credit unions out.
Definitely. Evan, any thoughts on that one? I mean, and I know your experience spans beyond the credit union industry, but any thoughts on how SASE is really bringing, and Cato as SASE is really bringing, this robust security to not credit unions, but organizations of all sizes?
Yeah, I love talking about this. And, if anyone is curious, there's an article. I can't remember where it was published, but it's kind of by our CEO, or at least paired with him. Um, it's really called about, cybersecurity is broken and it's all my fault, right? So our CEO, his name is Shlomo Kramer. He was a co-founder of Checkpoint Software, which, kind of one of the forefathers of security in general, networking security. But we've kind of ended up in this place, right, where security has become this complex stack of selecting the best one product for one, specific purpose, and then doing that again and again and again and make everything work together, right? And for smaller organizations or organizations that don't have the amount of money that the Fortune 500 do, it becomes difficult to manage the three areas that really need to be managed, right? And credit unions probably feel this the most, right? We're balancing our user experience. In some cases, this is our customers. Some cases, this is our employees. With our security effectiveness, and then also with cost, right? Real world, we can't have unlimited budget. But if a credit union or a company did, they might build a rack in a data center in every location that matters to their company, right? So this is kind of what Cato has done, right? We've built 90 plus data centers globally, all fully capable, all connected by our global private backbone to just allow security to be consumed as a service, right? I can connect to AWS, GCP, or Azure. I can spin up a server with any capacity I want anywhere in the world. The same here, right? We can provide full connectivity with zero trust, as well as all the security capabilities that organizations have come to depend on without the heavy lifting that has typically been required. Instead, right, like Doug has said, we just focus on kind of our policies, right? We have IPs that we can allocate at data centers. We have networking policies where we can, send specific applications through these IPs. We can block, we can inspect, we can really have control over our data and our traffic and how our users are interacting with the internet and SaaS.
Awesome. And I just want to remind everyone, please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the Q&A. We would love to answer any thoughts, any questions. I'm going to jump back to kind of the regulatory requirements. So obviously credit unions are subject to a lot of different regulations. Chris, in your experience, how does the SASE platform help credit unions meet regulatory requirements?
Sure. So Cato offers a couple things we haven't talked about, is the CASB and DLP solutions that Cato offers. So it helps prevent leaking of, PII, personal identifiable information, and other sensitive financial information as well. And then that the CASB side protects against, riskier unwanted applications like Doug talked about earlier. They also have their full suite of threat prevention engines that they have, things like IPS, DNS protection, anti-malware, which I know is heavily used in the credit union industry because of all the regulations. So, and really with Cato, a lot of times with your traditional network stack, you're really only protecting north-south. And so with Cato, because everything uses all the same security policies, that traffic, whether it's north, south, or east, west, is getting inspected. It's going through those security engines and being looked at for threats. So that's definitely some of the ways that it can help, through those regulatory requirements that credit unions have.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Doug, any thoughts on that in terms of regulations?
Well, we use Pure IT for our vCISO, and I think, since we've put Cato in place, it's really we've had no IT findings, which for us was unusual. We always had something that was some sort of finding. And the first time, I think we were probably the first credit union that our examiner had seen Cato. But I think once he saw Cato and he understood what it was, that they were very comfortable with it. So that made at least that section of the exam go a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal. You said no findings at all. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see, right? In all of our partners. Great, thank you. And we did have one question come in through the Q&A. So Doug, has there been any user impact? Do you have any feedback from your users? And they typically don't like change. So was the transition over to Cato bumpy at all?
We did have a couple of connections that were tricky, I guess. Cato uses and Chris, maybe you can jump in here a little bit, but an asymmetric route from what I understand. And some of our sites that we tried to go to were not using an asymmetric route. So it was a little bit of troubleshooting to get those working. None of that was really on the user end, though. That was, more between us and Pure IT and Cato trying to figure out how those routes worked. The end users really, it's no impact to them. They don't see it. Every once in a while, there'll be a new site that we haven't sanctioned or allowed, and it might be in the higher risk category or moderate risk category. And so those staff will have to request access to that site, and then we'll have to go through and review it and add it to the sanctioned apps list. So sometimes there's some things like that we review, but really from a user perspective, it's really easy. And single sign-on using the YubiKeys, no passwords, just it's easy for them.
That's great. And Evan, any insight too on, implementations, any feedback you've heard in general about SASE?
Yeah, I find that the customers I talk to, everyone has a different kind of idea of what the end result of their deployment will look like. And for us, our goal is really to just not be a barrier, right? We want the service to be flexible, scalable, and agile enough that any customer can onboard sites and locations and users as quickly as they're ready to. Right? Obviously, there's some moving pieces in there and some things as far as understanding what your previous policies and devices were. Also, like routing is important as well. But overall, right, it simplifies the process. You don't have to scale and purchase appliances. You just consume a service. If you need more, you purchase more. If you want to purchase additional capabilities, and I'm sure that none of you are going out and buying just everything and replacing your entire infrastructure at one time. That probably would be insane. Might be a lot of fun, but probably not a good idea, right? So, for us, it becomes a matter of if you become a Cato customer, whatever you buy. But let's say you want to add DLP and CASB like Chris talked about. At this point, you've deployed your sites and your users and you're using the service. If you want to use DLP and CASB, it just becomes a matter of turning it on and configuring policies. There's nothing additional to deploy. There's not a whole lot of things that really need to happen. It'll just work, with your policies that you create for your desired end result. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Evan, can you drill down a little bit for us into CASB, DLP? We have SASE, we have a lot of acronyms going on. So let's maybe drill down specifically. I know we've talked about them a lot, but Evan, too, I know you're really our resident Cato expert here, right? Can you really drill down into those for us and talk about some of the benefits?
I am glad to. And I thought the military had a lot of acronyms until I came into cybersecurity, and it's all acronyms.
I know.
So CASB and DLP, CASB is really about, more granular control, right? So if you think about, the basic level of security is, kind of secure web gateway, right? We want to control and block the categories of things that our users can visit. CASB is kind of a next step further, right? Maybe we want to say, we use OneDrive internally, but our employees have to interact with other people that may use Box or Dropbox. But we want our data to stay with us where we know and have control of it. So we want to allow them to download from these other services, but not upload their data to it. They can only upload their data to our one specific sanctioned tenant in our OneDrive. So this is the kind of granular control that you get with CASB. And there's, two flavors of CASB, I should specify, right? That kind is called inline CASB, which is really in line with a user. They're doing an action, and it's going to allow them or prevent them from doing a specific action on a cloud site. And then there's out-of-band CASB, which is also called like API SaaS security. So this is really, scanning things that exist in like S3 buckets or configurations in Azure, stuff like that, just to ensure there's no malware to, overlaps CSPM a little bit as far as there's another acronym. But as far as configuration, monitoring for oversharing permissions, things like that. And then DLP is, data loss prevention. So it's really controlling what kind of information is allowed to be sent, downloaded, whatever the case is, based on what it is. And I think has done one of the better implementations of DLP that I've seen in my career. Just as far as one being part of the service, it becomes simpler to consume. You can turn it on and you can configure policies as far as, what you want to block. Very granular as far as user group, application, time of day, things like that. But even kind of, a step further is we're continually enhancing this capability. So since its launch, you can obviously do regular expressions is very common in DLP. So this is, creating custom patterns to identify specific data. But we can also do exact data matching, right? So we can hash your data, looks very specifically for that exact data and prevent it from going places, as well as things like optical character recognition and as well as AI data classifiers, right? So we can automatically classify certain kinds of data for you and kind of help you with your journey in really implementing DLP and understanding your data. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded.
No, not at all. I think that's some really good background as well. And I think we're kind of close to wrapping up. If you guys do have any more questions, feel free to throw those in the Q&A for us. But any fleeting thoughts, Doug, Chris?
None for me.
I'll just give my last thought. Thank you everyone for joining us, and definitely thank you, Julia, for hosting. I will say that I really appreciate this webinar because I think that for us, our partners are really valuable. And I love how specialized you guys are and that you really understand, the credit union business and working with your customers, especially with all these things that Doug has to deal with, right? With the audits and the compliance. And so it's definitely great that you're well versed in Cato, but you're also, know what the customer side is. And I think, yeah, we've already seen some, positive benefits since you guys deployed.
Absolutely. And Evan, I saw something kind of fun and interesting that I want to pick your brain about before we go. It was talking about AI and the CASB service. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yes. Okay. So everyone is talking about AI lately, and it's kind of one of those things that I
Yes.
think we as Cato try and not overhype things, right? But it's obviously something people are using. We even license, I think, Copilot here internally, but people are using it. There's new flavors every day. So a couple of things that we've done to really help our customers prepare and secure themselves is um, first is the AI usage report. So this is new. I think it either just launched or is about to launch. But essentially, right, understanding AI usage within your organization, right? Which providers are being used, what kinds of prompts are being used. All that information can be provided in this report, and it just is collected natively if Cato is deployed, properly. Beyond that, right, if you're using our CASB, you could also do some things like, very specific control, right? So maybe you want to limit your users to only using your approved, sanctioned, licensed corporate tenant where the data is not used for training purposes. So that's absolutely something that we can accommodate, as well as really, other combinations, just depending on which the provider is, as far as which actions can be accommodated. But, I think the first step is really that visibility, right? Understanding what people are doing with the generative AI, which ones they're using, and then kind of getting to a place where what's comfortable and what should be allowed. And I think Doug mentioned this earlier, where they're using the risk scoring and the sanctioned and unsanctioned apps. I think we had chatted a little bit before. You'd mentioned you kind of have a goal to get to a point where users can only access apps if they are sanctioned. And I was wondering if we have time, if you wanted to talk about that just a little bit.
It is really just a journey that we've been on since we went to Cato. It wasn't something that overnight you just turn off everything and only allow sanctioned apps, because you're going to miss a lot of them. So Cato has a reporting feature that allows you to see all the different apps that people are using. So we started off with using Cato for 6 months, and then we ran some reports and we said, what has everybody gone to that might be rated a higher risk site, and look at those ones. Do we want to sanction those apps? And so we just kind of worked our way down. We first just blocked all the high risk, the 7, 8, 9 high risk accounts or high risk sites, and then we went to let's look at the ones that are the 6 rated that people are using, and we just sanctioned only the ones that we wanted to use. So then we blocked 6, then we blocked 5, then we blocked 4, and so then you only have 1, 2, and 3, which are low risk sites. And Cato is constantly updating their list of low, medium, and high risk sites. So if they're low risk, that they're a secure site that you can use. And then you can get to the point where you're only really just using only the sites that you've sanctioned, and they have a library of sanctioned sites that I go in, I put in the web address, or I put in the name of the site, and you just click the add button, the plus button there, and it adds it to your sanctioned sites, and then your users can use it, and you can do that as granular as you like. So you can do it at a only this person or this group of people gets to use that site, or you can say everybody uses that site. So it's it's really nice. And it's like I said, that process has probably taken us a year, 2 years to work through that, but it's really enhanced our security as we went through that process.
Wonderful. Great. Oh, we did get one more question here in the chat. Is the site score available on a dashboard?
It is inside the Cato portal. You can go in and look at the site, and it actually has like I don't know, a lot of criteria of how they came up with that risk score. So, do they have their financials? Is it a publicly traded company? All these different criteria they go to come up with the risk score. And it does tell you what the risk score is on their site.
Great. Any additional info there, Evan, Chris?
Nope. Doug hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think no one can say it better than Doug can. So
Awesome. Well, are there any last minute questions? I'll give everyone a few minutes, but thank you guys all for joining us. We really appreciate having you. I hope you found the session interesting and informative. If you have any questions, I did leave my email in the chat here. Feel free to send me an email, thoughts, questions, any of it. I'm happy to send those questions along to Doug, Chris, and Evan. We're super thrilled to be partnered with Cato. And really appreciate you guys being here. This has been recorded, so I will send the recording out to everybody if you would like to share with others in your organizations as well. Well, we did not get any more questions, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.
everyone,
you.
thank you.
Bye.